Okay, so for all of these question types, the first thing you have to do, because sometimes you're making more work for yourself and making the question way harder, but the first thing you have to do is try direct substitution. Plug in 2 here, see that the numerator goes to 0, plug in 2 here, see that the denominator goes to 0, and only when it's in this indeterminate form 0 over 0 do we have to rewrite this and get something to cancel before we can figure it out. Now, if we just had a calculator, it might be quicker to graph it in the calculator, although that would be kind of tough to graph with all those fractions, but if you could graph it and you had a calculator, that would be kind of a backup. But for this question type, you need to recognize that this is a complex fraction. Complex fractions when you have smaller fractions within a bigger fraction. So that is your next hurdle to get over, is you have to get rid of these smaller fractions. So you can get rid of this one by multiplying by 4, but you can only multiply this by 4 if you multiply them all by 4. And then you can get rid of this smaller fraction by multiplying by x squared, but you can only multiply this by x squared if you're willing to multiply them all by x squared. And then what we have left over is a 3 times 4, a negative 3 times x squared, and then in the denominator we've got a bunch of stuff, a 4, an x squared, and an x minus 2. So multiplying everything by that least common denominator, 4x squared, doesn't mean I'm finished with the question. Nothing's canceled out yet. But it's taking it from being a complex fraction to not being a complex fraction. So it's still progress. Okay, the next thing that I would probably try is, it looks like the denominator, there's not really much I can do with this. It's already factored. But the numerator, I could factor out a 3. And this factors more. This is the difference of 2 squares. And so then that gets me to here. And it looks like to finish this question, we need to remember the factoring out a negative trick, because this one and this one are almost the same. They have the exact opposite signs. Positive 2, negative x, positive x. So you can switch both of these signs, which will make these cancel, if you factor out a negative. So it's like you're pulling out a GCF of -1. And then finally, anytime you have indeterminate form, you're looking for this to happen. As soon as something cancels, go back to direct substitution, plug this into the top to get -12, plug it into the bottom to get 4 times 4 is 16, and then I reduce that to -3/4. So you should start the question the same way you should start all of these, with direct substitution. Because you got 0 over 0, you need to rewrite it. And what's unique about this question compared to the others is that you started off with the complex fraction, so you need to be ready to deal with the complex fraction. Multiply everything by the least common denominator. Did anybody have something more specific in that one? Any of those steps that I'm skipping over, what you needed help on?